Hey everybody, this is Tracy with Seattle Tarp. Today we're going to be going over the basic deployment and setup of your medical isolation chamber. Upon receiving your medical isolation chamber, the first thing you want to do is always take an inventory of your medical accessory bag and the isolation chamber shell bag itself. First, let's take a quick inspection of the isolation chamber bag. Inside the bag, you should have one outer shell, 12 ports, included with 12 red caps. One red cap will have the O2 adapter port for any external connections. At the base of the head and foot ends of the isolation chamber, you should have 3 air filter port connectors. And running the length of the isolation chamber, you should have 7 HDPE reinforced plastic ribs. Now let's cover the inventory inside the accessories bag. Inside the accessories bag, you should have 1 powered air unit, 1 airflow meter, 6 HEPA filters, 2 white breathing hoses, and 1 isolation chamber manual. Depending on the isolation chamber product you have purchased, whether it's the pediatric isolation chamber or the adult-sized isolation chamber, your product inventory will vary. Be sure to check with your isolation manual for the correct amount of parts you have received. Now that we've taken proper inventory of all parts and accessories, let's get ready to set up and deploy the isolation chamber. Start by removing the isolation chamber from the isolation bag. And being that we've already taken a proper inventory of all parts and accessories, you probably already have your isolation chamber removed. Once removed, you always want to take a quick inspection of all parts and fabric inside the ISO bag. Start by completely unfolding the isolation chamber and inspecting all welds around the ports, all seams around the zipper, and again with the welds around the air filtration ports. With the inspection complete, we're now ready to set up and deploy the isolation chamber. Start by first locating the middle rib of the isolation chamber. Underneath the flap, you'll find 1 rib anchor. Start by gently bending the isolation chamber rib and placing into the black rib anchor. And remember that with adult-sized isolation chambers, you will have a total of 7 of the white reinforced plastic ribs. Next, completely fold out all of the fabric so that you can determine which end is the head and which end is the foot. You'll be able to locate the foot end of the isolation chamber by finding the orange warning label. Now that we've identified the head and the foot ends of the isolation chamber, let's get ready to install the HEPA filters. Start by removing 2 of the 6 HEPA filters from the isolation accessories bag. Next, on the interior of the head end of the isolation chamber, locate the 2 outermost ports. Before installation, be sure to remove all caps and plugs from the HEPA filter. Start by unthreading the bottom cap of the HEPA filter. Once the bottom cap is removed, flip to the top side and pull the plug on the top side of the HEPA filter. Now that we've installed the 2 HEPA filters on the interior side of the head end of the isolation chamber, let's get ready to install the remaining 4 HEPA filters. Start by laying both the head and the foot end of the isolation chamber completely flat. This makes for easier installation of the remaining HEPA filters. Next, take 1 of the 4 remaining HEPA filters and install on the middle air port of the head end of the isolation chamber. Take the remaining 3 HEPA filters and install on the external side of the foot end of the isolation chamber. Be sure that your HEPA filters fit nice and snug to ensure a proper airtight seal of the isolation chamber. Now that we've properly installed all the HEPA filters, let's get ready to assemble the powered air unit. Included in the assembly of the powered air unit, you should have 1 head unit, 1 back plate, 1 battery pack assembly, and 5 D-cell batteries. Let's first start with the battery pack. On the bottom side of the battery pack, you'll have both the positive and negative sides of the battery placement. Ensure that all batteries are properly installed into the battery pack. On the top side of the battery pack, you should have one power plug that assembles to the head unit of the blower. Now that we've installed all the batteries into the battery pack assembly, let's get ready to connect power to the head unit of the blower assembly. Start by laying the battery pack face down and locating the female and male ends of the blower assembly. Connect until you hear a click and can no longer pull the wires apart. Next, locate the two prongs on the back side of the battery pack. Insert to the bottom side of the head unit of the blower assembly. Once installed, ensure there's a nice flush fit of the battery pack into the head unit of the blower. With the battery pack now installed and the power cable connected, let's get ready to put the backplate on. Start by locating the two tabs on the bottom side of the backplate. Insert into the bottom rungs of the head unit of the blower. Rotate until the two quick disconnects click into place. Now that we've properly installed the backplate and the battery pack, let's get ready to test for power. On the top side of the powered air unit, you should have one power switch and one red indicator light. When testing for power, two things should happen. The auditory alarm, followed by a short beep, will let you know that the battery pack is receiving the proper amount of power to operate the head unit, directly followed by air being discharged out of the powered air unit. If the batteries, battery pack, or power cord are improperly installed, or if the batteries run low, you will first receive a flashing red indicator light, followed by a constant beeping from the auditory alarm, which sounds like this. The normal operating battery life is between 8 and 12 hours. Now that we've got our head unit properly working, next thing we want to do is get ready to attach it to the isolation chamber. Before doing so, you want to insert the plug into the bottom of the head unit. The plugs can be located inside a bag along with the HEPA filters. Take one plug and insert it into the bottom side of the head unit. Again, we want to ensure a nice snug fit to ensure a proper airtight seal to the head unit. With the plug now inserted into the bottom of the blower assembly, let's get ready to install. First, locate the two Velcro straps on the head end of the isolation chamber. Start by removing one side of the Velcro strip on the head end of the isolation chamber. Next, locate the large eyelet on the side of the blower assembly. Proceed to feed the Velcro strip through the large eyelet on the side of the blower assembly and fasten securely to the head end of the isolation chamber. Then repeat on the other side. With the blower assembly now properly installed on the head end of the isolation chamber, let's get ready to install the breathing hoses. Inside the accessories bag, you should have two white breathing hoses. One should have a straight fitting. The opposite end should have a 15-degree bend. Start by locating the two outer fittings on the head end of the isolation chamber and install the straight fittings first. Next, you'll install the 15-degree bend into the blower assembly. Always ensure a nice snug fit so that a proper airtight seal is established for the isolation chamber. The last piece we need to install on the head end of the isolation chamber is the flow meter. The flow meter is inserted into the top of the blower assembly. Once the flow meter is installed, be sure to apply power to the blower assembly to check for optimal airflow. Minimum flow will be indicated by the min flow line on the flow meter. Optimal flow will be the bead floating to the top of the flow meter. Be sure to check the flow meter every 10 to 15 minutes for the first hour of operation to ensure that you are receiving optimum airflow into the isolation chamber. If bead falls below the minimum flow line, be sure to check the battery pack and blower assembly for all proper power connections. We're now ready to deploy the isolation chamber. Start by ensuring the head and foot ends of the isolation chamber are completely raised. Before inserting any patients, be sure to raise the flap, lay the patient inside the chamber, reinsert the anchor, and then seal the isolation chamber. Be sure that your blower assembly is always running before you insert the patient into the isolation chamber. And before inserting any patients, be sure to do a last check of all seams, fabric, caps, and equipment to make sure that all seals are properly airtight. For any post-use cleanup, be sure to defer to your emergency response team, as each response team's post-use procedures are different. This is Tracy with Seattle Tarp, thanking you for watching our video, and be sure to contact us with any questions, comments, or concerns.